If you don't have air superiority, you're on a losing team. Any country that goes to war and doesn't have air superiority, that's a country that's going to lose. And so in the black community, where that analogy fits in is that we are not really able to find out what's going on in our community. We're basically, it's hearsay, or we may have a few hundred come out to an event. Well, we will be able to reach thousands through podcasts, through this live streaming program. And so we want you to tell family, to tell friends, to tell associates to tune in, because one of the things that we're going to be giving you is raw truth. And in a time like this, we need raw truth. So we have today a very powerful brother who is making waves here in Dayton, brother H A Jabar. And he is the founder of the West Dayton Youth Task Force. He is also the author of Ahmad Saves a Nation, Volume 1, The Dream. And you also have an ebook out there, don't you, as well, Brother Jabar?
Yes, sir. My first book was Well-Made Man Building the Temple of Self. It's also up there on my website, hajabar.com. Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you, brother, for coming on to the program and to talk about a very serious issue, education of a nation. When we think of education, many times in our community, we take education lightly. And I say lightly because we have not yet disengaged from a system that is programming our children, as you wrote in an article, or was in an article on the web, programming our children for failure. Can you talk a little bit about, you had an experience in an all-black third grade class, and this kind of sparked in you a movement to write this book, Ahmad Saves a Nation, Volume 1, and many other things. Can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, Brother Steve, man. First, let me thank you for having this opportunity to come out and share. The independent media is critical at this day and age, so you started us off on the right note, referring to the military analogy and having air superiority. But I've been active in the community here in Dayton, working with young people as a career coach, as well as a case manager, putting young people to work at the job center. I've been active in the school system. I'm a volunteer for third grade. Ohio has what they call a third grade reading test. My family is a family of educators. And my mother told me a long time, Brother Steve, long time ago, that at third grade they determine how many jails they need to build in the future based upon how many children can and cannot read.
Right.
So that, that's a very significant point, and those that are wise and wickedly wise, determine, how many people that they're gonna lock up, how many people they're gonna put behind bars, etc.
Right.
So when I went to my third grade reading assignment, the building, it was my first day there. Went to third grade because there's a lot of weight on these young people passing that third grade test. If they don't pass it, they'll stay back for the next year and repeat third grade. And I went to the classroom, it's an all black school, 99.9% black teacher, black children. I'm a black man, I come in there, so it's all black everything.
Right.
It's Jay-Z the Black Album.
Mm.
But the curriculum, as the day progressed, the topic of the day was genealogy. What is an aunt? What is an uncle? What is a niece? What is a nephew? What is a cousin? What is a brother? What is a sister? What are these terms? Mm-hmm. And again, all black people in the classroom. I looked down at the handout, and it's all white faces.
Right.
And I couldn't believe it, man. I mean, I was just amazed.
Yeah.
So everybody there black. We talking about family. and the children are looking at all white faces.
Yeah.
So that really took me back to my childhood because I wanted to ball that piece of paper up, throw it over my shoulder, and go about my business.
Right.
You know, so that child that does that is a discipline problem. You know, they need to go to the principal and be talked to, or they need to be suspended for 2 or 3 days. But it instills in the child boredom. You know, the child is simply bored from this curriculum that has nothing to do with their community,
Right.
nothing to do with their reality. And, you know, the way that media is today with television, social media, DVDs, instant messaging, text messaging, everything is quick, fast, you know, electronic. And so here comes this boring, stale, salty, white curriculum that this child is disinterested in. And so they're setting this young person up.
Right.
They're not only setting them up for failure because they know they're going to be disinterested, so they put them in the pipeline
Yeah.
to prison.
That school to prison pipeline.
Absolutely.
Preschool to prison pipeline. And one of the things that you touch on too, you know, it's like the minister was saying that when you open up a yearbook, you know, one of the first things that you look for is your picture.
Absolutely.
You know, and when we look at history that we get from school, we don't see our picture in there. You know, and then when we do see our picture, it's a slave, it's a sports athlete, it's an entertainer, it's not a doctor, it's not a lawyer, so it's not a revolutionary. It's a shame that, like you, I go to some public schools. Sometimes Brother Marlon Shackelford, who's doing an excellent job, invites me to talk to some youth. And I asked them at one of these forums, I asked the young people, do they know about who knows who Harriet Tubman is? Who knows who Ida B. Wells is? Who knows who Marcus Garvey? These should be staples of knowledge for our black youth. But anyway, so
well, we have to tell the truth, you know, when it comes down to it. Really, who set up this school?
right,
Who writes the textbooks? Who hires the teachers? Who teaches the teachers? What education did they receive? You know, so this whole education is set up to make slaves. You know, we don't call them slaves anymore. We might call them an employee. You know, they're taught to get a job. They're not taught to be self-sufficient and independent or build something for themselves. You know, you're taught everything that was ever discovered was by white people. Everything that's anything of significant value, white people did it. Anything that's here that was invented or has any extreme value, it came from white people. And simply that black people are just around, more or less, to serve white people.
and how serious should we take this? I mean, because look, and I ask that question because many of our people, we're not thinking that if we're not able to teach our children to think outside the box, and they're just being prepared to get a job, as you were saying, we have to understand how robotics and mechanic and machines and AI, artificial intelligence,
Engineering, biology,
these
science,
things are taking
chemistry.
over a lot of jobs. So.
Yes, technology, absolutely.
And so, school to prison pipeline, we basically have them being set up to run into the hands of law enforcement and end up into the school to prison pipeline, which now we have prisons on Wall Street. So we have a neo-slavery, a new form of slavery today.
Yes, according to that 14th Amendment, they put us right back into slavery once we get a felony. You know, so the same job that they won't give us on the outside, they'll give to us on the inside to work for 30 cents a day, you know, or 20 cents a day, you know, working for these elaborate Fortune 500 mega companies that are, you know, international. So yeah, they're setting us up to be slaves all over again. They're wisely institutioning slavery all over the nation and country. Ohio has 2 prisons that are private prisons, and therefore people can invest in these prisons and make money off of high occupancy. So just like a hotel, they're looking for the highest occupancy possible. They want every bed filled so that they can work these slaves until they're dead. So they're going to feed them the worst food, the least cost. They're going to provide them the least medication, least services. It's not there to help this person become a better citizen or to correct the behavior that they might have done, out in the world. It's simply to keep them at a state of subservience.
Yeah, definitely. So I know people who are listening to this may want to find out how they can help you in the West Dayton Youth Task Force. Tell us a little bit about the West Dayton Youth Task Force, why you started it, and how people can contact you to be a part of it.
Well, actually, we started back in 2014. There was a young man during the winter that was shot and murdered and left to die in an alley in a Westwood neighborhood, and I was deeply affected by that. And there was a young community activist that got on social media and said that the churches should open up their doors on Fridays and Saturday nights to give young people a safe space, to go. And so it was in that spirit that we started Youth Cultural Movie Nights.
Okay.
And so we've been showing movies that are relevant to our culture, dealing with all things, whether it be our like Return of the Titans,
Right.
Or the different basketball movies or the different chess movies that are entertaining, but they have an underlying theme to them about pride in our own culture, dealing with our own history. And so those were something that we've been doing monthly, the Youth Cultural Movie Nights. One thing that we also did was an 8-week summer program for K through 3rd graders. We did a Saturday school. We set up 4 stations, chess, cultural awareness, language, arts, and mathematics. We used one principle each week from the Nguza Saba, or the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, dealing with unity, dealing with creativity, dealing with faith, dealing with cooperative economics, dealing with cooperative work and responsibility, just to show young people about community. So in the West Dayton Youth Task Force, we're about initiating programs that teach young people about the Nguza Saba, which are the 7 principles. And we chose these principles because it's not religious, but it overrides all the religions.
Right.
It's really based upon community. It's really based upon race consciousness. It's really based upon family. And so the young people are able to see their own culture. They're introduced to their own culture, who they are. They can be proud of who they are. They can call each other brother. They can call each other sister. It's the type of environment where it's a lot of love, where we don't allow young people to, they call it burning or cracking jokes. We don't allow any of that. We build each other up.
Right.
So we just want to provide an environment, a safe environment of love, of culture, of education, but have some fun at the same time.
And you talk about principles, and that's a beautiful word, principles, because when we erase all the rituals of religion, it comes down to the principles. And when we look at the principles of all the religions, all of them have the same principles. To do unto others as you would have them do unto you, to fast, to pray, to become one with God. And so that's a beautiful thing right there. Let's get into this book, Ahmad Saves a Nation, because a curriculum of our own, a new educational paradigm. Can you talk about Ahmad Saves a Nation and why, and what's the value of this book?
From my own personal experiences as a young black man in school, from having children that go to the American education system, schools, I found the value of being able to open a book and to see somebody in it that looks like me.
Right.
We are relational in that we learn better when we can relate to the curriculum, when we can relate to the person in the story. So our old ancient traditions of Africans or in Africa, we had storytellers, griots or griots. So we learn, and even it's in rap today. I think about Slick Rick, one of the greatest storytellers.
Right.
So we learn through story, and those principles are incorporated in the story of Ahmad Saves a Nation. And so this young man, Ahmad, he's a young 21-year-old black man. He lives in a town that's post-slavery. So right after slavery ended, throughout the nation, we built 60 towns of our own,
Right.
with very little is known about. You know,
Exactly.
that's not widely circulated. So this town that Ahmad lives in, his great grandparents helped to found, and it's really modeled after cities like Mound Bayou, Mississippi,
Okay.
like Rosewood
Right.
in Florida.
Black
and
Wall Street,
Exactly.
maybe Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa, Oklahoma. So Ahmad is an upstanding young man who respects his elders, who is really a pillar in his community. He takes the leadership roles amongst young people. He's a businessman. He has his own lawn mowing business. So we talk about that. And so I take this story and we develop math lessons. We develop culture lessons. We develop lessons around language, lessons around creativity. You know, so all of these things are incorporated in one story, but we can extract so much from it. But again, by seeing us in it, by seeing ourselves.
Right.
You know, he lives on a farm with his father and his mother, his two younger sisters. His father owns an apple orchard.
Okay.
So we deal with, you know, how much it costs to
Right.
buy an apple, how much it costs to raise an apple. If it takes 3 apples to make a pie, and each apple costs 50 cents, well, how much does it cost to make a pie? Now,
Right.
this is reality. Now, you're talking to young people. Young people like food.
Yeah.
They like sweets. They like to make some money, but they need to know how to do all the above.
And I think too, you know, on you know, basing it on a farm, we know that land is the basis of all independence. Without land, you can't produce your food, you can't produce your clothing, you can't produce any type of shelter. So, you know, we have been extricated or removed from land, and now we are totally dependent as a people in 2016 for food, for clothing, and shelter. And that is why in the black community we talk about food deserts. In the black community we talk about food deserts.
And that's so important, though, Brother Steve, because ask a young person, a third grader, second grader, where does food come from? And they'll
Right.
tell you the grocery store.
Yeah.
Because that is where food comes from
Right.
in their reality. So we have to change the mindset of their reality. We got to give them the source of where the food comes from, because they have to be in a position to create their own stores. No, the food doesn't come from Kroger's, but it gets there by a truck. Does your mommy drive? Does your father drive? Well, if you want to, you can have your own trucking business. But before it gets on the truck, somebody loads it. That's a job. Somebody make that job of their own. They didn't necessarily have to have somebody to fill out an application and that type of thing. But the food is raised on the farm. And where does your clothes come from? The store? No, it comes from cotton. It comes from wool. It comes from the sheep. It comes from the cotton plant. You know, we have to teach these things to our young people because they don't know.
Right.
And nobody's going to teach them unless we do.
That's right.
And that's just the reality. So we're going to the fundamentals of an economy. We're going to the basics of an economy, but we're teaching it through story. We're not saying 1 + 1 is 2. Now repeat it back to me, Johnny.
Right.
If you can repeat it, you're smart. And if you can't, you're dumb. No, we don't learn like that.
Right.
So this methodology of a new educational paradigm, we have to look at how our children learn. Because some of our children are kinesthetic learners. They want to put their hands on something.
Right.
You know, they don't want to sit and be talked to. Some of our children are visual learners, like myself. So they want to see it. They want to relate to the curriculum. You know, some are auditory. So there's different learning styles, but that learning style is not incorporated into the American education system. They don't care how you learn. They say you're going to learn how we say you're going to learn, and if you don't, you just do without.
And don't learn, don't teach in a way that a person can think outside the box.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And,
Yes.
and think of something creative. And so the age that this book is targeting, what's that age, and how can parents who hear this program, how can they get this book for their child?
So you can go to the website, hajabar.com is my website, hajabar.com. But if you go to hajabar.com/Ahmad, that's AHMAD /INDEX.html, you can purchase the book there. It's on sale for $7.99. Again, it's up for sale on the website. Also, you can go to our Facebook page for the West Dayton Youth Task Force, and that's facebook.com/WDYTF. And so again, all of those things are up there for you to access online. And our children today are so smart, they're so fast. You know, you have to utilize computers. You have to utilize modern equipment to teach these young people, because just sitting in a classroom and listening to a teacher, those days are done and over with.
And I mean, I know we got just 10 more minutes. We touched a little bit on curriculum, but like you said, though, I think you touched on it, put it out there. Who designs this curriculum? You know what I mean? And so, you know, some of the research that I've done, a lot of the curriculum that's coming out of Texas, a lot of, you know, those who are in Texas, they have literally written out in some textbooks that we were brought here as slaves, and that we were brought here to help build the country. You know what I'm saying? In other words, twisting history so that our people will remain blind, deaf, and dumb to the reality of our situation.
You know, if we don't get a hold of our education system, Brother Steve, then we are doomed to be nothing as a people.
Right.
You know, if we don't prepare our young people today, you know, if you look in the context of all that's going on in the world today, if you look at Tamir Rice, if you look at John Crawford, if you look at how the governor defunded the Youth Works program, 10,000 across the state, if you look at the murder of Eric Gardner and all of the others, you know, we have seen the philosophy of integration come to a halt.
Right.
The philosophy of integration has proven that it's not sustainable for our community. And education is so important, because what our children know depends upon what they're able to do. So if we don't have an education where this child can create a job, create an institution, create a reality, a home, a family for himself, for herself, then we're going to be in bad shape. We're going to be servitude slaves for another 100,000 years.
And you know, you talk about, you know, the American people in general are rebelling against the educational system. One of the things that we're hearing about that's going on is this academic emergency that's could possibly take place for the Dayton Public Schools. This in 2016, this is absurd that the state would be threatening to take over the education in Dayton. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Brother Steve, you know, there's a lot of layers to this. You know, some people will get on me a little bit for beating up on DPS schools.
Yeah.
You know, because the state of Ohio has actually ruled on more than one occasion that the way that schools are funded in the state of Ohio is unconstitutional. So the state is breaking its own law in how they fund education. So it's not equitable. The same funding that we get is not the same funding that they get in the white schools. So it's based upon property tax partly, and clearly if the area you live in has a poor home ownership, poor income coming in to generate revenues, then you're not going to have a lot to develop your public school system with. So Dayton has been struggling. They are in the process of possibly being taken over by the state of Ohio Department of Education system. There is the possibility of still maintaining freedom if they do perform well on the test, the state test for the next year or two. It will be in 2018 or 2019, I believe, that the state could possibly take over if it continues to perform at the same rate at which it has been performing. So there's a lot of areas for improvement, but the sad part is that the Dayton is a very clearly divided city, black and white. Black on the west side, white on the east side. The bottom 10 performing schools out of, I think it's 28 or 29, the bottom 10 are all in West Dayton. And this is not because black children are less intelligent.
Right.
This is because of unequitable practices. Unequitable practices. So the racial justice now, I give a lot of credit to. They've been at the forefront of pushing equity. There's an equity policy in place now so that the same resources that go to schools in the east side go to schools on the west side. But that was due to racial justice now. Right. That was due to community members pushing the school board, pushing Dayton Public Schools to make that possible. But yeah, the school system is struggling. I mean, all over the country, America is, I think it's the 7th industrial nation regarding to testing. Is putting out less and less mathematicians, less and less engineers, less and less scientists. So you see governing bodies like the national mathematicians, national scientists. They're looking for mathematicians because there's such a shortage. They can't compete with China anymore in that
Right.
area. They can't compete with Singapore
Right.
anymore in that area. You know, so when it comes to getting their computer systems hacked, when it comes to getting the governmental computer system hacked, FBI, CIA getting their computer systems hacked, they cannot compete
Yeah.
because of the dumbing down that has been happening over the years in the education system, so they're not producing these high-level minds that they used to produce.
And America continues to slip further and further behind. And if you think about it, the how far America is slipping won't be known until these children enter into the job market. And a lot has to do with these corporations as well, because they are not only outsourcing, but they are also insourcing by bringing individuals from India, individuals from Russia, who they can pay less, you know, to do the same type of computer job that they would have to pay an American individual more. So, I mean, this is, you know, so in other words, what I'm trying to really say is the powers that be, they are not educating, as Amos Wilson said. The reason why they're not educating the masses of the people is because they don't have jobs for them.
And so they want to, or are creating a service economy.
Exactly.
And so with the service economy, you don't need higher education.
Mhm.
You know, really just read and write.
Right.
So they're not desirous, some of the corporation owners are not desirous to see young black men and young black women go off to college.
Mhm.
They're not excited to see them take higher level mathematics or higher level sciences, because that doesn't fulfill those low level jobs that they have for them.
Mhm.
Working at a restaurant, working at, you know, a nightclub, and working at a hotel, changing bed linens and things of that nature. So, so America has really set themselves up, shot themselves in the foot. As this global economy continues on that basis of competition,
Right.
America's not competing well at all, white or black.
That's right. That's right. So as we wrap this up, before we wrap this up, we have a few minutes to go. Economics, and you're teaching the children. I gotta put this out there. You're putting a product in their hand, that ginger juice.
Yes,
Can
sir.
you talk a little bit about that and why ginger juice and what's that program all about?
Well, you know, we've learned with the West Dayton Youth Task Force by working hands-on with the young people in the community. You know, when it comes to some of the younger people, we can get their attention through games, get their attention through movie nights and things of that nature. But as they get a little older, they want to put some money in their pocket.
Absolutely.
Dayton is a city that is over the third of the population is under the poverty line. And so young people want to be able to make some money. And there's nothing wrong with making some money. Older people say that, you know, you shouldn't sell drugs, but they don't give you anything else to sell as opposed to selling drugs. So as I reach almost my 38th year on this planet, approaching being that of an elder, you know, I have a responsibility to this generation, so that we're taking a product, which is a healthy product, and you can find it on our Facebook page at West Dayton Youth Task Force. It's called Sunshine Gingerade. It's made or manufactured and bottled by a black man in Cincinnati. It's bottled, labeled, and produced in Cincinnati by a black company who ships it out, and we distribute it throughout our neighborhood. So we've been taking this product door to door. Again, it's a healthy product. It's all natural. There's no preservatives, no additives. It's the real thing. It's natural sugar. It's not the type of drink where you can just put it down on the counter like you would a Coke, come back a week later and it's good to drink.
Right.
You know, it's the real thing. So we're able to teach young people how to communicate, how to talk, how to dress, how to knock on a door, how to create a sales pitch, you know, how to calculate profit, how to calculate net sales, and so to go out and be able to do something for yourself. So this is what we're developing, the People Power program, putting young people to work. Lord willing, we'll be having some more products to sell. There's a sister that makes natural soaps, shea butter soaps, and we'll be putting those out to sell as well. So again, we just want our young people to have a future, to build a future for themselves, and not the future of this stale education that they're giving us. Not that a high school diploma is necessarily going to create a future that we want for ourselves.
Right.
Neither is a college degree today. You know, they say that there's PhDs that are working for $8.25. So we want an education that's based upon reality. We want our young people to be able to make some money for themselves, to be able to serve their community, to be able to interact with the community members in it, and to provide the needs of our community. We shouldn't have to go to Walgreens. We shouldn't have to go to Kroger's. We shouldn't have to go to places that are not from our community,
right,
and that take those dollars that we spend with them outside of our community.
Absolutely. And you know, you talked about the school loans, and we'll wrap this up. You know, there are a lot of these college students who are graduating with these tremendous debts. You know, it's all a slavery system, because
Yes.
the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught that debt is slavery. Also, when we look at a lot of the jobs that they're graduating with, they can't even use anymore, because, as I said, AI or artificial intelligence and these type of robotics and machines are replacing their jobs. And then on top of that, we have, I mean, just the whole system is just imploding in on itself in essence. So as we wrap up, my brother, I really want to thank you once again for coming on to our first show, and we definitely want to have you back to talk about more. We really didn't get to talk about the whole Job Works program, and maybe we can touch on that next time. But please give the people one more time how they can contact you and purchase the book, and more from any other events that might be coming up in the future.
So my website is at hajabar.com. You can purchase the book at hajabar.com/Ahmad, that's AHMAD /INDEX.HTML. Also on our Facebook page, that's facebook.com/WDYTF. And you can also email me at info@hajabar.com. That's info@hajabar.com. And I'm just thankful to be on the show with you, Brother Steve. You mentioned AI, you mentioned these different machines and robotics. And, you know, we want to raise robotic engineers.
Yeah.
We want to raise engineers. We want to raise architects, raise chemists.
Yeah.
But not to go out and be chemists for somebody else's
Right.
community and build things for them that they profit off of. No, let's do that together.
Yeah.
Because we've taken young people on numerous occasions actually to the robotics competitions.
Oh yeah.
And so we've had a great time at Wright State University, taking young people out and showing how the robots compete with one another, showing the basics of roboting, computer programming, flight simulators, and introducing them to science and mathematics from a practical standpoint, not the stale, sit down,
Right.
shut up and listen, regurgitate what I told you type of classroom. But we birthed into the classroom of God, you know, the sun, moon, and stars,
That's
the
right.
sky, the wind, the lake, the river, the earth. All of this is our classroom. So we want to raise our young people up on a new educational paradigm, not the one that the Caucasian gave us to make us slaves, to make us servants, to make us employees. We
Right.
want to return to our natural ways. So we're teaching young people that they are gods.
That's right.
Children of the Most High God.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Brother H A
Thank
Jabar.
you.
That's Brother H A Jabar. He's joined.